The ocean in Greyhaven never really goes quiet. Even on calm mornings, it scrapes pebbles and clicks shells under the pier. When fog rolls in, the whole town sounds like it is holding its breath, like it is listening for something it does not want to hear. That was the morning I noticed the thumb drive on Callery Rourke's kitchen counter. Not hidden. Not wrapped in drama. Just sitting in a cracked plastic cup beside a half-eaten bagel and a stack of mail like it didn't matter. But it mattered to me because Callery mattered to me. Callery was my best friend. We'd been inseparable since we were 13 and stupid when we stole a boat paddle from the marina because we thought it made us pirates. We got caught, we got yelled at, we got grounded, we laughed about it for years. Callery stayed in Greyhaven. I left for a long time, then came back when my dad got sick and the city started feeling like a place I was renting instead of living. I reopened my life by the docks, running the marine supply shop. Lines, hooks, flares, cheap coffee, broken reels, and long conversations people treated like small talk. In a small town, listening is a profession. So I heard about the body on the South Beach before any official statement. A young man, late 20s, washed up in the dune grass. No ID, not local. Greyhaven hates uncertainty, and tourist season was coming. Nobody wanted headlines. Nobody wanted questions. Sheriff Lasky was old and tired. Callery did the real work, lead investigator. The guy who noticed what other people missed. That is what I believed. The afternoon after the body was found, Callery came to my shop. He looked worn down in a way he didn't want anyone to see. The kind of tired that isn't from a long day, but from carrying something that won't set down. "We've got a suspect," he said. "That fast?" I asked. He nodded once. "Yeah, Noah Pike." Noah Pike was Greyhaven's favorite villain, the name parents used to scare kids, the face people blamed when they didn't want to admit accidents happen. He lived at the edge of town, in a crooked house, did odd jobs, drank too much, and got blamed for everything from stolen tools to bad luck. "What's the connection?" I asked. "We found the victim's phone," Callery said. Smashed, but the SIM pinged near Pike's place that night, and a witness saw Pike's truck by the South Access Road. "Who's the witness?" I asked. Callery hesitated. "Not long, but long enough to feel wrong. Doesn't matter," he said. "It's solid." I watched his face the way you watch a tide line. "Callery, are you sure?" His eyes didn't blink. "I'm sure." Then he did what Callery always did when things got heavy. He dropped something ordinary into the middle of it, like it could balance the scale. He tossed his boat keys on my counter. "My boat won't start," he said. "Can you look this weekend?" "Sure," I said, because the old habit of being useful is hard to break. As he left, he paused. "If anyone asks you, you didn't hear this from me." "Hear what?" I asked. He stared too long, then said nothing and walked out. The next day, half the town gathered outside the sheriff's building, pretending they were driving by. Greyhaven loves a public accusation. It makes people feel clean. Noah Pike came out in cuffs. He looked exhausted, not angry. He locked eyes with Callery and mouthed something I couldn't hear. Callery leaned in close and whispered back. Noah's shoulders dropped, like someone had told him a final truth. The case moved fast, too fast. In bigger places, cases rot slowly through paperwork. Here, the town wanted a straight line, and Callery delivered one. I didn't sit through every day of trial, but I heard details the way you hear weather through thin walls. People came into my shop to buy bait and also to retell the courtroom like it was a show. They said the witness was Darren Sutter from the towing company. They said Darren was sure he saw Noah's truck near the South Access Road around 11:30 p.m. They said the phone ping put the victim's phone near Noah's place at 11:48 p.m. They said Callery presented it all like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Noah was convicted. Life. No parole. The town exhaled. Callery's face went back to normal, the version of him people trusted. He wasn't joyful. He was relieved. Like a man who'd pushed a heavy door shut and leaned on it until the latch caught. 2 weeks later, Callery invited me over for dinner. That alone was odd. Callery wasn't a dinner-hosting guy, but he texted, "Swing by, chowder." His teenage daughter May ate with headphones on, tapping her foot like she was trying to outrun silence. Callery talked about boats and weather and nothing important until he said, "It's done." "The case?" I asked. "The mess," he said. "Handled." Then he said, "If you hesitate, people get hurt." May's foot stomped for half a second. She stood, mumbled something, and disappeared down the hall. Callery acted like it didn't matter, but he watched the hallway for a beat too long. Then he stood and rinsed the pot, scrubbing like the water could erase whatever he'd just said. That's when I noticed the thumb drive in that cracked cup by the mail stack. Callery saw my eyes and stepped in front of it like an accident. "You want dessert?" he asked. "May likes those boxed cookies." "I'm good," I said. On my way out, he asked, "You okay?" It sounded like a warning disguised as concern. The next day, Sheriff Lasky came into my shop and asked if Callery and I were still close. He said strain makes men do stupid things, then told me to report anything I heard. The air felt different after that, like the town had turned its face toward me. And then Mara Voss walked into my shop. Mara was a former classmate who'd left town and returned sharp-edged. She worked as a court clerk in the neighboring county, close enough to know things, far enough to pretend she wasn't involved. She carried herself like someone who learned to survive by never looking uncertain. Without looking at me, she said, "Noah Pike didn't do it." "That's a strong claim," I said. "I read the transcript," she replied. Two things don't match: the witness timeline and the phone ping. She lowered her voice. "The ping wasn't in the initial report. It appeared later." My stomach tightened. "After the phone was in evidence?" Mara's jaw set. "Yes." "If you know that, you know who requested it," I said. Mara didn't answer. She picked up sinkers, set them down, picked them up again. "If you ask questions," she said, "ask them carefully." Then she leaned across my counter and her scarf brushed the wood. It carried a scent I recognized, Callery's cologne, not strong, just there, like a fingerprint you can't unsee. It was a small detail. It shouldn't have meant anything. But in a small town, small details are how you die or survive. I told myself to stop, to go back to selling hooks and coffee and pretending I couldn't hear the ocean. Then I went to check Callery's boat because he asked me to, and I found the broken starter wasn't broken at all. A wire had been disconnected on purpose. Not corroded. Not snapped. Disconnected. I reconnected it. The engine turned over immediately, purring like it wanted to prove a point. I texted Callery. "Wire was off. Starter's fine." He replied after a long pause. "Weird. Thanks." 2 words. But they felt like a hand tightening around my wrist. That night, on my way home, I drove past Callery Street. Mara's sedan was parked at his curb with the lights off. Someone slipped up his steps fast, scarf visible in the porch light. Maybe it was work, maybe it was talk. But my stomach didn't believe in maybes anymore. The next morning, I called Mara and kept my voice casual. "You were at Callery's last night," I said. Silence, then a laugh that sounded practiced. "I was at the courthouse," she said. "Late filings." "At midnight?" I asked. "Emergency docket," she replied. "You know how it is." I didn't, but she said it like doubt was childish. "Why do you care?" she asked. "I care because you told me to be careful," I said. "And then I watched you walk into the house you just told me not to poke." "I didn't say that," she said quickly. "I said don't be reckless." It sounded like advice. It also sounded like someone trying to put my hands back in my pockets. That afternoon I tried to convince myself I was wrong. I told myself I was seeing patterns because I wanted a villain. Then I found my driver's side wiper lifted and bent up like someone had inspected it. Not damaged, just moved, a tiny invasion meant to say I was here. Under the blade was a diner receipt, 2 chowders, 2 coffees. Timestamp 12:17 a.m. Across the bottom, in pen, someone had written, "Don't make me clean this up." My throat went dry. It could have been Callery. It could have been Mara. It could have been someone else. But it sounded like Mara's voice, sharp, annoyed. Like I'd forced her hand. That night I did something I hated myself for. I parked down the block from the diner and watched from my truck. At 12:08 a.m., Mara arrived. She parked behind the building where the dumpsters blocked the street view. She checked her phone twice, then walked to the side door like she had permission. 3 minutes later, Callery's unmarked SUV rolled into the same back lot. He killed his headlights at the last second and got out fast like a man who knew exactly where cameras weren't. They met between the dumpsters and the back door. They stood close, heads angled toward each other. Not arguing, not flirting like teenagers. The posture of people who share something that works. Mara touched Callery's sleeve and held it for a beat too long. Callery leaned in and said something that made Mara smile, small and quick like a secret. Then they went inside together. 15 minutes later, they came back out. Callery handed Mara a manila envelope. Mara tucked it under her arm like it belonged there. Before they separated, Callery brushed 2 fingers against Mara's wrist. A quick touch, familiar. A claim. Then they drove off in different directions, clean as clockwork. I sat there breathing shallow because seeing it made it real in a way suspicion never is. The next morning, Mara showed up at my shop wearing sunglasses like armor. "You called me," she said, like she was doing me a favor by remembering. "I did," I replied. "Because you lied." Her mouth tightened. "About what?" "About where you were," I said. "And why you're so invested in Callery's case." Mara sighed like I was exhausting. "Evan, you have a gift for turning smoke into fire." "I saw you," I said. "Behind the diner. With Callery." For the first time, her mask cracked. Not guilt. Calculation. "What exactly did you see?" she asked. "That's your question?" I said. "Not you're wrong, not you're imagining things, but what did you see?" Mara's jaw clenched. "Fine," she said. "Yes, we met." "So you're in it," I said. "I'm in the county," she snapped. "I'm in records, filings, and the boring parts. Callery asked me to help keep paperwork clean." "Clean," I repeated. Mara leaned in, voice low. "You don't know what was on that victim's phone," she said. "You don't know what names would have been dragged into daylight. If those clips spread, families with money and badges will do anything to keep their kids off screens. You understand?" "I understand you're protecting someone," I said. Her eyes flashed. "I'm protecting a town that doesn't deserve to burn because a drifter wanted leverage." "And Noah?" I asked. "He deserves to burn?" Mara's lips pressed together. "Noah is convenient," she said, then immediately looked annoyed at herself for saying it out loud. There was my confirmation. Not an argument, a slip. I watched her hands. She rubbed her thumb against her index finger like she was twisting something invisible. Like she was rehearsing restraint. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked. Mara hesitated, then said, "Because Callery asked me." "That's not enough," I said. She stared at me, then her voice dropped. "Because Callery is the only man in this town who ever treated me like I wasn't a mistake," she said. "And because I am tired of cleaning up everyone else's mess without anyone noticing." It wasn't a love confession. It was worse. It was the sound of a person admitting she'd attached herself to the one man who made her feel chosen. "Are you involved with him?" I asked, keeping my voice flat. Mara's eyes snapped up. "Don't be crude." "I'm not asking for details," I said. "I'm asking if you're tied to him in a way that makes you lie to me." Mara held my gaze too long. Then she said, "We're close." She didn't correct it. That was enough. A customer walked in, and Mara stepped back like she'd never been near me. When the customer left, she said, "Evan, you can still stop. You can still go back to selling coffee and pretending you don't hear the ocean. And you can stop pretending you're doing this for May," I said. "You're doing it for Callery and for yourself." Mara's face hardened. "If you keep pushing," she said quietly, "Callery will decide you're a loose end." The phrase hit me like cold water. "You're threatening me," I said. I'm warning you, she replied. There's a difference. When she left, I noticed mud on her shoe, dark and wet, marsh mud. So she hadn't just been filing paperwork. She'd been near the origin of the story. That night I drove to the South Access Road and parked. Fog hugged the dunes. My headlights cut a tunnel through nothing. After 20 minutes, a car rolled down the gravel, lights off until the last moment. It stopped near a service gate. A door opened. Callery stepped out. He moved like he owned the darkness. He checked the chain on the gate, tested the latch, looked around once, then turned back toward the car. And Mara stepped out of the passenger side. They weren't meeting by accident. They were doing rounds, checking their secret. Callery said something to her. Mara nodded. Then Callery reached up and tucked Mara's scarf tighter around her neck, a small gesture too intimate to be work. Mara leaned into it for half a second like it was familiar comfort. Then they got back into the car and drove away. I sat there with my hands locked on the wheel, realizing there's a special kind of betrayal when two people you thought were separate are actually a team. Not just in a cover-up, in life. I drove home and checked my shop camera feed. The alley was empty, but at the edge of the frame, just before the sensor stopped recording, I caught a blur. Like someone had been there and stepped away. I slept badly, phone on my chest, salt taste in my mouth. 2 days later, I drove inland to the jail to see Noah. Not because I thought I could save him with a conversation, but because I needed to look at the man the town had sealed into a story. The receptionist took one look at my name and said, "Noah Pike doesn't get visitors." "Why?" I asked. "Protective custody," she said, then lowered her voice. "He filed a complaint against Callery, says Callery threatened him." My skin went cold. On the drive back, my phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Stop digging." The sea takes what it takes. A minute later, a photo of me by the South Access Road, time-stamped from 10 minutes earlier. Someone was watching. That afternoon, Darren Sutter walked into my shop, grabbed coffee without asking, and said, "You look like you swallowed a hook." "Long week," I said. Darren snorted. "Yeah, same." He was the witness. Everyone knew it. He also had the reputation that comes with being useful and unreliable at the same time. I waited until he took a sip, then said, "Darren, about that night." His eyes flicked up. Too fast. "What night?" "The South Access Road," I said, "when you saw Noah's truck." Darren's jaw tightened. "Don't start." "I'm not accusing you," I said. "I'm asking if you were sure." He stared into his cup like answers lived at the bottom. "I was sure in court," he muttered. "That's not what I asked," I said. Darren's hand shook slightly. "You think you're the first guy to come in here and ask questions?" he snapped. "You think you're special?" "I think the timeline changed," I said. "I think you changed it." Darren's face went red. "I didn't change anything," he said, then softer. "They changed it." "Who?" I asked. Darren's eyes darted toward the window like the street could hear names. "Callery," he whispered. "Callery told me it mattered, told me to think harder, told me the town needed closure." "And you did it for closure?" I asked. Darren laughed without humor. "I did it because he made me feel like if I didn't, I'd be the one ruining everything," he said. I leaned closer. "Was Mara there?" I asked. Darren froze. His silence was loud. "She was around," he said finally. "Always around, court girl with sharp eyes. She'd show up and suddenly everyone acted like she belonged in rooms she didn't belong in." He set the cup down hard enough to slosh. "Evan, I don't want this. I already did my part. I said my words. I'm done." "You helped put a man away for life," I said quietly. Darren's eyes flashed. "And you think saying that out loud makes me feel better?" he snapped. Then his voice dropped. "You want to know what keeps me up? It's the idea that if I talk now, Callery will come for me. Or the people Callery is protecting will." "Who is he protecting?" I asked. Darren stared at me, then shook his head. "Kids," he said. "Families. The kind of names that buy silence." He turned toward the door, then stopped and looked back. And Evan, stop driving past Calories' place at night. You're not as invisible as you think. He left without paying, leaving engine grease and fear behind him. An hour later, I went out back and found my shop's rear lock scratched like someone had tested it with a tool. On the ground beside it was a single seashell, white and clean, placed like a calling card. That was the day I started turning feelings into a record. I mounted a small camera above my back door facing the alley, not because I wanted drama, because I wanted proof. That night when I got home, there was a paper bag on my porch. Inside was a warm muffin from the diner. Under it was a Polaroid of me at the access road. No note, no explanation. Just a message, we see you and we can get close. I drove to the marina to clear my head. Fog hid the docks. I watched May walk fast to Calories' boat with a backpack. She opened a console compartment, pulled out a plastic bag, and tucked something phone-shaped into her bag. I waited until she was gone, climbed onto the boat, and found the compartment empty except for a clean rectangle in the dust. A board creaked behind me. Calories stood at the end of the dock. Hands in pockets, calm face. Hard eyes. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Checking your boat," I said. "You saw May," he said. "I did," I admitted. "Leave her out of this," Calorie said. "What is this?" I asked. Calorie leaned closer. "You don't know what you're stepping into," he said. "Heroes drown here." He pointed toward the street. "Go home." I did. But I didn't forget the way he said heroes, like it wasn't a metaphor, like it was a promise. The next morning I went to Reverend Tully. He didn't give me details, but he admitted Calorie visited Noah before the arrest and told him the town needed an answer. "Ask yourself who Calorie is afraid for," Tully said, like he already knew. That night May found me at the pier. No headphones, no armor, just a kid trying not to break. "My dad framed Noah," she whispered. "Sort of." She told me about a party at the hidden marsh pad. The drifter showed up recording moments to use as leverage. He demanded money. May tried to get the phone. There was a struggle. He fell into the marsh. May ran. Later, Calorie figured it out and decided the town would never forgive a kid. He said he could fix it. May unzipped her backpack and showed me the water-stained phone in a plastic bag. "He hid it on his boat," she said. "It has videos." "Videos of you," I said. May nodded, eyes pleading. "Please, don't ruin my life." I took the phone home because she pressed it into my hands like a confession. It still powered on with a charger. The passcode was May's birthday. Inside was a folder labeled Greyhaven Videos, not graphic, just proof. May at the pad, the drifter taunting, the scuffle, the fall. And other clips that made my stomach tighten, not because they were explicit, but because they were leverage. Small-town mistakes captured like trophies. Noah Pike wasn't the only target. He was just the easiest. My phone buzzed. Calorie calling. I didn't answer. Then Mara messaged me, "Stop. Right now." Seconds later, another message from Mara. A screenshot of a text thread between her and Calorie. "Calorie, you sure he doesn't suspect?" Mara, "He suspects." I handled it. Calorie, "Tonight. Same place." Mara, "Don't keep me waiting." No romantic words, nothing explicit, but it read like two people who shared more than work. Like a secret that had become routine. I stared at it until my eyes hurt. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't in love with Mara. I was sick at the thought that she warned me, controlled the conversation, and then met Calorie in the fog like I was a problem to manage. Before I could respond, my door shook with a knock. "Evan," Calorie called. "Open up." I stayed behind the door. "Go away." "You have it," Calorie said. "Don't you?" "I know what you did," I said. "The late ping, the revised witness statement, Noah's complaint, and Mara." Silence. Then Calorie's voice went low. "Leave her out of it." "So it's true," I said. Calorie didn't deny it. He only said, "You don't understand what that phone does. It burns everyone." That doesn't give you the right to frame Noah, I said. Calloway's voice cracked, just barely. You want to sacrifice my daughter for principle? I want you to stop sacrificing other people, I said. The doorknob jiggled once, then stopped. Calloway's voice became calm, the tone he used in interviews. Give it back, he said. We'll put it under the water where it belongs. No, I said. Then you're choosing Noah over May, Calloway replied. That's not what this is. It is, he said. In the end. I said, leave, or I call the state. Calloway laughed once, dry. Call whoever you want. You're not the only one with something to lose. His footsteps retreated. Outside, a car idled with headlights aimed at my windows. Then it rolled away slow. The next day I drove to the courthouse and pulled the public records. Calloway had requested a supplemental digital forensic report 3 days after the phone was logged into evidence. And the witness statement revision had been filed right before trial. Darren's first version said after midnight. The revised version said around 11:30. That wasn't memory. That was shaping. As I printed the log, I heard heels behind me. Mara. She guided me into a side records room and shut the door. You're making this worse, she said. For who? I asked. For everyone, she snapped, then softened fast. Evan, listen. Calloway didn't do this because he's greedy. That drifter was going to ruin May, and not just May. Half this town has people who can't afford to be seen making mistakes. And you helped, I said. Mara's jaw tightened. I didn't forge anything. You helped the story fit, I said. That's still helping. Her eyes flicked away, and that was enough. Then she said something I hadn't heard from her before. Something honest and ugly. Do you know what it's like to be stuck here? She said. To leave and come back and realize every door is still the same door? Calloway promised me a way out, a reset, somewhere else. Somewhere clean. So this is your exit plan, I said. Mara's face hardened. This is survival. And Calloway? I asked. Her mouth tightened. Calloway is the one person who made me feel like I wasn't alone in this town, she said, then added quickly, don't turn that into something cheap. I didn't. I didn't need to. Because I understood now. Mara wasn't helping Calloway. She was invested, attached, entangled in a way that made truth feel like a threat to her future. Mara leaned closer. If the state subpoenas that phone, she whispered, May loses everything, not just court, school, friends. Her whole life becomes a headline. You want to be the man who does that? And Noah? I asked. What about his life? Mara's voice went flat. Noah is not a saint. That's not the charge, I said. She stared at me, then said softly, You're going to get yourself hurt. I already got photographed on my porch, I said. So spare me the warning. Her eyes widened just a little, like she hadn't known that part. For a second she looked scared, not for me. For her plan. That night I made a choice that felt both necessary and dirty. I copied only 3 clips from the phone to my own drive. The timeline at the marsh pad, the scuffle, the fall, the pieces that mattered to Noah's conviction. Then I deleted everything else. Not because it was right. Because I didn't want a folder of town-wide leverage sitting in my kitchen like a loaded gun. I didn't want to become the drifter. I didn't want to become Calloway. I only wanted the proof that Noah wasn't the killer. 2 days later, a storm slammed Greyhaven, and Mara called. Someone filed an emergency motion for review in Noah Pike's case, she said. Anonymous, with digital footage. I hadn't filed anything. Calloway, I said. Mara whispered, Of course. But it's incomplete, curated. Calloway had thrown a controlled piece of truth into the system, enough to crack the conviction, not enough to expose May, not enough to expose himself. Not enough to expose Mara. When I hung up, my shop camera pinged, motion in the alley behind my building. I pulled up the feed and watched a hooded figure stand in the rain under the light, staring at my back door. They didn't break in. They just stood there for 10 seconds. Then they walked away. A message. Again. I drove to Callery's house. He opened the door like he'd been waiting. In his kitchen he said, "You're welcome. I gave you a better option." "A better option for who?" I asked. "For people who actually live here," he said. "Noah lives here," I said. Callery's eyes hardened. "Noah is poison." "And Mara?" I asked. "Is she poison too, or just useful?" Callery's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. "Where is your copy?" he asked. "I need to know if it contradicts what I filed." "You can't have contradictions," I said. "I can't have chaos," he corrected. "Chaos hurts people." "Control hurts people," I said. Callery's face went cold. "Mara thinks you're still soft," he said. "That you still believe warnings are kindness." "She lied to me," I said. Callery nodded once. "She'll pick the winning side every time." I stared at him. "So will you." Callery stepped closer. "You have the drive," he said. I held it up. "This could burn you." "And it could cage May," he replied. The choice sat between us. Hand it to the state and let truth rip through everyone, or keep it and become complicit in the lie. "I'm not giving it to you," I said. "And I'm not giving it to the state," I added. "Not today." Callery blinked, confused for the first time. "That's not an option." "It is," I said. "Because if you keep fixing reality, this becomes the thing that stops you." Callery's voice dropped. "You're blackmailing me." "No," I said. "I'm containing you." He muttered, "Same thing." I left in the rain and drove to the hearing. Inside, the judge questioned the chain of custody. Callery answered smoothly. The judge pressed on the late paying request and the revised witness statement. Callery called it routine. The judge didn't buy how effortless it sounded. She ordered an evidentiary hearing and an independent review of digital forensics. Not freedom. Not justice yet, but outside eyes. Noah appeared on the video screen, pale and tired. He didn't look like Greyhaven's monster. He looked like a man carrying the town's fear on his back. "They told me I was going to carry it," Noah said, "whether I did it or not." Callery didn't react. But I remembered the arrest, the whisper. Noah's shoulders dropping. When court recessed, Callery found me in the hallway and spoke without moving his lips. "Whatever you have," he said, "you keep it." It wasn't a request. I looked at him and said, "Stop using people." Callery's eyes flashed. "You first," he murmured and walked away. Mara followed half a step behind him. In the parking lot, before they realized anyone watched, Callery touched her elbow. Mara leaned in and said something. Callery's mouth tightened. Not romance like movies, something colder. A partnership built on secrets, promises, and shared risk. Back in Greyhaven, fog returned like the town could reset itself. The diner served pie. The pier boards creaked. Sheriff Lasky smiled at church. And I sat at my kitchen table with a thumb drive hidden in a tackle box and the knowledge that I'd become part of the machinery I hated. Noah was still in jail, waiting on a slow system. May was still a kid carrying one bad night like a stone. Callery was still walking around with a badge and a calm voice. Mara was still choosing what kept her standing. And me? I stopped sleeping like a man who believes in clean endings. Because the truth wasn't a clean line anymore. It was a bargaining chip, a weapon, a leash. Some nights I walked to the pier and stood where May stood, trying to hear a clean answer in the surf. I never did. Then, 3 nights after the hearing, I came back from locking up the shop and found my front door slightly open. Not kicked in. Not forced. Just open. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like it hit the floor. I stepped inside slow, light switch on, room empty, nothing overturned. Nothing stolen. It looked normal. That was the problem. I went straight to the kitchen, to the cabinet where I kept the tackle box. I opened it. The tackle box was there. The thumb drive was there too. But it wasn't where I left it. It sat on top of the lures like someone wanted me to see it immediately. And next to it, placed perfectly, like a neat little joke, was another thumb drive. New. Black, clean, no scuffs. A label on it written in careful block letters. Evan. My mouth went dry. I didn't plug it in. Not yet. I just stood there listening to the house settle and the ocean whisper through the cracks of Greyhaven like it was amused. Because that was the last truth the town decided to hand me. I wasn't the only one holding evidence anymore. I was evidence now. And whoever walked into my home without breaking a thing wasn't warning me. They were reminding me that in Greyhaven, the ocean doesn't decide who drowns. People do,